Okay, this video is multiplying and dividing fractions. It should be reviewed to you, but make sure that you write down any questions that you have at the end so that we can talk about them the next day. All right, the lesson objective for this lesson is I can multiply and divide fractions and mixed numbers. But when we say fractions, we imply mixed numbers. Okay, so I have two new vocabulary words, cross-canceling and reciprocal. Cross-canceling can only be done when you're multiplying fractions, okay? And what it means is that you can reduce any numerator and a denominator by the same number. This should make sense to you because we've done it before, but if it doesn't, hang on until we get to multiplying fractions, and then I'll show you what cross-canceling does, okay? Any numerator and a denominator, but it has to be one numerator, one denominator inside the problem. And then reciprocal. Reciprocal is when you take a fraction and you flip it over. So the reciprocal of 6/8 is 8/6, okay? The reciprocal of 1/4 is 4/1. It just means that you flip the fraction. And when you do that, and you multiply those two numbers together, you end up with a 1. That's what makes it the reciprocal. You're going to need reciprocal when we divide fractions today because we don't like to divide. It gets really messy. So by using the reciprocal, you can multiply. Again, this is one of those things that you'll see farther into the video, and I'll explain it a little more. Okay, so one thing we have to be able to do when we multiply and divide fractions is to change an improper fraction to a mixed number and a mixed number to an improper fraction. So just a quick review. And the way to change an improper fraction into a mixed number is to divide the numerator by the denominator. So 22/5 means that I'm going to take 22 and divide that by 5, okay? Because we don't want to leave an improper fraction for one of our answers. So 5 goes into 22 4 times, and that gives me 20, and I subtract, which leaves me with 2. These three numbers are important, okay? The 4 at the top is the whole number, so I'm going to write W next to it. The 2 remaining are the 2 pieces that are left. That's my numerator. And the 5 is the total number of pieces in my fraction. So when I divide, I find that 22/5 is equivalent to 4 2/5. Let's do 31/2. Why don't you try that one by yourself, pause the video, and then come back and check it. All right, let's see how you did. 31 divided by 2. 2 goes into 3 once, subtract. 2 goes into 11 5 times, and I have 1 left over. So I have 15 with 1 left over out of 2, so 15.5. Now, vice versa, you need to be able to turn a mixed number into an improper fraction in order to multiply and divide. So, remembering how to do that, the first thing you do is you multiply the whole number and the denominator, and then you add that number plus the numerator and put it over the denominator. So 7 times 7 is 49 plus 3 is 52, and then we put it over our denominator, which is 7. So 7 3/7 is equivalent to 52/7. Try the next one by yourself and come back and see how you did. Okay. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 4 is 34/5. So 6 4/5 is equivalent to 34/5. Okay, so let's jump right into multiplying fractions and mixed numbers. Remember that this is probably easier than adding and subtracting because you do not need a common denominator. So let's go through the steps. The first thing you always need to remember is that if you need to change mixed numbers into improper fractions so you can cross cancel. You cannot multiply mixed numbers the way they are. Well, when I look down here, 1/3 times 3/5, it's already done, so I don't have to do that. Okay, now I'm going to cross cancel. Remember I told you it's any numerator and any denominator that you can reduce. When I look, I see this 3 and this 3, and I know they can both be divided by 3, so I can cross cancel them. Only one denominator and one numerator. So cross cancel, 3 divided by 3 is 1, 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now I go on to my next steps. Multiply the numerator, straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 5 is 5, that's done. Multiply numerator and denominator. Now I'm going to simplify if necessary. 1/5 is in simplest form, so I don't need to do anything with that. Okay, so let's go with this next one, which is a little bit more complicated. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go through all the steps. The first step is to change mixed numbers to improper fractions if necessary. Well, do I need to do that? Yes, I do. So multiply and add. 3 times 9 is 27, plus 1 is 28. So I have 28/3. Then I'm going to do the next one. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So 8/7. Done there. Next, cross cancel. Well, 3 and 8 cannot be simplified, but 7 and 28 can. 7 can go into both of those. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. 28 divided by 7 is 4. Now, multiply numerators. 4 times 8 is 32. Multiply denominators. 3 times 1 is 3. Now I need to simplify because that's improper and I can't leave it that way. 32 divided by 3 is, I can do that down here, oops, is 10 with 2 left over. So my answer would be 10 and 2/3. Usually multiplying is pretty simple, but if you have any questions, make sure you write it down because we're moving on to division. Okay, so here we go. Dividing is where we have more trouble. What I want you to remember is just like when we did subtracting integers, and I told you don't subtract but add, the same thing goes with dividing, okay? Fractions. I don't want you to divide fractions. I want you to change it and multiply. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's go through the steps. First, we need to change mixed numbers into improper fractions if necessary. 8/15 divided by 5/6. Well, that's not necessary. They're already like that, okay? Now, instead of dividing, we're going to take this next step, which is replace multiplication with division and find the reciprocal. So, 8/15 stays the same. Just like when we were subtracting integers, that first number stays the same. So 8/15 stays just like that. Then I want to change my symbol to multiply. But I'm not done because I can't just multiply. I now have to find the reciprocal of 5/6. The reciprocal means we flip it over, so now it's 6/15. 6/5. Sometimes I'm talking and I'm not paying attention. Okay, so now we're done. Now it's a multiplication problem. We go back to our multiplication steps. Cross cancel if we can. All right, so 8 and 5, those two we cannot cross cancel because there's nothing to reduce them by. Remember, this is not cross multiplying, it's cross canceling. We're making them smaller. 6 and 15 can both be divided by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now let's just multiply. 8 times 2 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. And when I look at these, I know that they cannot be reduced any farther. So my last step is done, and my answer is 16/25. 16/25. Whew, seemed a little complicated, but you guys have done it before, so I think you'll be okay with it. Let's move on to one more slide where we look at mixed numbers. All right, just keep going through the steps. If you write these steps down, when you go start working on your practice tomorrow, you'll be able to look at the steps and follow along and get used to doing each of those steps. So the first things I want to do is change mixed numbers to improper fractions. Well, I have a mixed number, so I'm going to change that. 2 times 10 is 20, plus 1 is 21. So 21 halves divided by 6/8. Okay, now I need to replace multiplication and find the reciprocal. So I leave 21 halves alone, I change to multiplication, and I turn my fraction over, so 8/6. Okay? Now I'm going to cross cancel if I can. Well, I look at 21 and 6, and they can both be divided by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, 21 divided by 3 is 7. And then I look at 8 and 2. Those can be cross canceled also. 8 can be divided by 2, and that's 4, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So now I'm just going to multiply straight across. That's my next step. 7 times 4 is 28. 1 times 2 is 2. Is this improper? Yes, so I cannot leave it that way. So now 28 divided by 2 is 14. So, with none left over. So my answer is 14. I know that was quick, but it was a quick review. Write down any questions you might have, finish up your notes, and we'll do more of this tomorrow.